Yeah. So sales for me started probably when I was playing sports and we had to raise money for the teams. So whether it was M&M box sales or program ad sales, whatever it was. I mean, I even at a young age said, look, I want my team or my group or whatever we're doing to win. So we would get as many boxes of M&Ms as we could. We would stand on the corners on Johnson's Ferry Road, Roswell Road in Atlanta, shake those M&Ms in people's windows, and we would we would come back because the coaches look, to their credit, I always say great coaches would make great sales leaders, and they would give us what they called lawn chairs and lemonades at football camp. So if you sold the most boxes of M&Ms, you got to watch everybody else run during morning running camp, lawn chairs and drink lemonade if you sold the most. So don't think I didn't love sitting there razzing my teammates, right, during that. So that's where sales started for me. So I'm excited to talk about the stuff that you guys sent over and get into this.
Before we get started and get into it, appreciate you coming on the show. There's a couple questions I have for you. One's your T-shirt, EBITDA.
Yeah, EBITDA.
Why
we need
EBITDA?
We need more of it. Everybody needs more of it, especially in the freight game right now. But my daughters and my wife gave me this for Christmas. They hear me say it. They've actually, when we went down to Florida one time and we were walking around the docks and everything else, there was a boat there that somebody named it that, it's important. It stands for earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So businesses a lot are valued on EBITDA multiples. So EBITDA. Or there's an old school way I used to say it of EBITDA. That was, some of the guys or girls that know me, they'll be like, Kevin, that's really old school the way you're saying that. So,
and that goes back to what we were saying right before I hit record, and that is the sell is not done until you get the money.
Right. And that's actually the most important part of the sales process is getting paid, right? And getting paid in a manner that doesn't come across as jerky or obnoxious and that'll make them want to come back again, right? And I think a lot of people know that during my non-compete days, I worked at Waffle House. And the one thing about Waffle House is they say get the check out quick, right? Not only will you turn the table fast and get somebody else in that real estate that'll make money, but nobody wants to wait around for a check because it's the last thing you remember, right? The last touch point in a sale is usually the payment, right? And so you want to make sure that payment is clean and is not offensive, but also like you got to get paid sometimes in a collection standpoint, and then you got to be firm. So yeah, it's a balance. The sale is not done until you're paid. That's for sure. Paid in full.
Yep. Before we keep going, Kevin, I know most of our audience or soon to have audience will know you, but there may be people who don't know you. So just quick introduction about who you are, what you've done, just a brief little intro for the audience.
Yeah. So I'm a freight broker at heart. And what that means is we arrange transportation. So we're the middle man or woman in between a shipper and a mode of transportation, whether that's a trucker, a sprinter van, a drayage carrier, an ocean container, whatever it is, we're in the middle, right? We arrange it. And so that's I started a business that did that in 2005 called Nolan Transportation Group. In 2018, after growing that business, I sold majority of that to Transportation Insight and their private equity group, Griffin, out of San Francisco. So I'm on the board of that company, still actively involved, not in a management role, but, talking to Ken Byer, the CEO, talking to the other board members, talking to the sales leaders, helping, push. But so that was my first large business that I started. And it's awesome. It's still growing today. And the leadership there is really, really strong. And that business, top 10 freight broker in the U.S. out of, I think there's now 20,000 freight brokers in the U.S. Another business I started, OTR Capital, which is now OTR Solutions. That is a solutions company for truckers. So truckers have a really, really hard time on the road. We provide financing for them. We provide fuel cards. We provide a banking type solution and clutch cards that they can use to manage their fleets. So that's an awesome business. I sold majority of that in 2021 to a group out of Boston called Summit Partners. They're awesome. They used to own Fleet Corp, which is another Atlanta-based company. And so they're growing that like crazy. I have an insurance business, Marquee Insurance Group, where we sell insurance to trucking companies. So there's a theme here. So everything I do, mainly focuses around logistics. And then the last one that we've started most recently is Payhawk, GoPayhawk. And basically that is a digital payments platform, because so much of our industry that I've seen over time is paid in live check. ACH is kind of considered cutting edge. There are so many more payment options out there, not only from traditional credit cards to all kinds of subscription type payments. We're getting more into crypto. There's a lot of different things that we're doing over at Payhawk, which is really fun. And then I have a family office. So from selling these companies and having some good successful outcomes, I still am an entrepreneur at heart. And so with that, I've started Soap Creek Capital, where we'll invest in up and coming businesses and help those entrepreneurs through the questions and things that I've gone through in the past, whether that, and some of them graduate on, and most of them do, to larger private equity companies or are bought by larger strategics. And so, I just have a lot of fun. And then I've got a family, been married for 23 years, got 3 daughters, 22, 17, and 14. Love sports, like to fish, which I think is very, very similar to sales, fishing for sure. But that's me.
Very similar. It reminds me of what you're doing right now. It reminds me of the reporter, or someone asked Willie Nelson one time, when are you going to retire? It's like, well, all I do is play music with my friends and golf. Which one do you want me to give up? Right. It's just in the blood.
Look, I love it. Ever since I was young, I've always loved beating numbers. It's a game, right? And logistics is a never-ending puzzle. Every day it changes. There are so many pieces. It's fragmenting, right? Everyone talks about fragmented industries. I love to sell into fragmented industries, right? Where, barrier to entry might not be that hard to get in, but hustle, know-how, using technology, you can beat others. Like, that's what I love, right? And so logistics is that. And all the ancillary products of it, whether it's the finance aspect, the insurance aspect, the payments aspect, technology as well, so that's what I do. And the main thing that I do when I help businesses is I challenge management to really push and grow sales, because without a big top line, you cannot have a big bottom line. Just does not work. And you're going to lose your customers one way or another. Hopefully it's not through your bad service, but it might be through, them having an acquisition happen, or you never know. So you always have to be selling, or it's the best defense is a good offense. So sales.
That's one thing that we have in common is, I grew up in Atlanta as well. Played baseball, for most of my life.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Chamblee High School, and then we moved to Alpharetta, and I graduated from Milton. But I played on travel ball teams. First travel ball team was the Moores Mill Bombers off of Moores Mill Road, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
And and I played for East Cobb and the East Cobb Astros and the Georgia Tigers. And
so I live in East Cobb, and so I didn't play baseball, but I wish I did, right? And so by the time that I wish that I had played baseball, it was too late because of that whole the Atlanta baseball scene is awesome, right? And so I live in East Cobb, so all those guys and the trips they would have. I'm sure you have stories and stories of cards and all the travel baseball you did, and just those guys, the camaraderie they had. And then even in college, when I played football in college, the baseball team was like their own fraternity, so to say, right? The coach wouldn't let them join a fraternity, but they were so tight knit. Like when they walked into a party, you'd be like, "Oh, the baseball team's here," right? It's just that it's awesome. Milton beat Walton the other night. That's I went to Walton, and so Milton just won the state championship in football. Where are you now? Are you in Atlanta now?
I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So
All
I've
right,
escaped.
so you're in chat. Kevin, what about you? Where are you at?
I'm in Fort Worth.
All right,
Fort Worth, Texas.
nice. So you're not far. You're just up 75.
Yep. And I remember selling candy bars as a 12-year-old and 13-year-old and 14-year-old kid to fund all of these. They would tell us before the season started, all right, here's the travel schedule. Here's where we're going. Here's the hotels we're staying at. Here's the entry fees, the uniform fees. The coaches were paid. So every kid was responsible for, I don't know, it was like $5K a season or something. And it's a lot
Yeah,
of money, and
that's a lot of money.
here's some candy bars, go sell them. You sell all these candy bars and you got your season paid for. So that was, my parents would
Two
tell me,
bucks at a time. So you sold a lot of candy bars, right? I mean, $2 per, right? I mean, the margin on it couldn't have been more than $1, right? So,
youth
you sold a
baseball
lot.
has to be responsible for like a certain level of like diabetes or blood sugar problems or something in the city. The amount
Well,
of
we
candy.
live in Atlanta. My best customer is more responsible than anybody, Coca-Cola, right? Like I'm the biggest drug dealer in the South moving that shit around. I love it. I love it. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. My daughter will, no matter where we are. And don't get me wrong, Pepsi's pretty good too, but a good Coca-Cola in the South, nobody can do better with that. So I
So let me
think
ask,
I think I think you're right though. There's something to the Girl Scout cookies too.
so with that in mind, I'll use that as a good segue. Two-part question. First part is, where is your favorite place to go vacation? If you got one more vacation left, where are you going? Are you going to the beach? Are you going to the mountains? Like,
Barbuda. Barbuda. It looks fake, right? It's Barbuda. It's a little island off of Antigua, I believe. I was not there long, but we stopped by, on a little cruise one time there, and it looked fake. They have a little Nobu, like a pop-up Nobu that's there I don't even know if it was real. And I was there, I remember looking around and saying, life might be a simulation, but there. Like I was just I kind of or Italy. I went to Italy this past year for the first time ever, and the food, and it just felt like where humans were supposed to live. So I would say Barbuda or Italy, but I think I would say Italy. I would go with Italy again. Would probably
okay,
first
and
time to Europe.
what's your favorite drink? If you're gonna have one drink, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, whatever. Like
Milk,
what milk?
ice cold glass of milk. Right. So, like my partners in OTR Solutions that are out of Boston, we did a board meeting up there, and they made sure that I had my milk at dinner as well as at the Red Sox game. So they joke with me about it. I love milk, man. I love milk and water. Those are my daily go-tos. I used to crush Miller Lite like nobody's business, but off that now. But yeah, a glass of milk.
So let's say I want you just to imagine way off into the future, you're done working, work is over, and you're on a beach in Italy, retired, and you got a nice big cold glass of milk in your hand. There's people walking the beach. They got trays full of milk. There's tables. There's
Just
milk on all.
one. I just need one. I don't need trays. One ice cold one a day.
You got the big glass of milk in your hand. Work is over. You're thinking back through your career. What's the last sale you ever made?
Mm. My last sale, like if I could go out, honestly, it'd probably be like a shipper in the Midwest. Just call them up through a manufacturing guide or maybe an association list. Ask them their toughest lane and book that load. Make $200 margin on it and strut out of the office, right? Like that would be the way that if I could end it, or a 25 power unit trucker out of Elk Grove Village, Illinois, switching them over from Apex or RTS to OTR, right? One of those. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe again a 50 power unit at Marquee, but maybe just the old sweet spot. Like my first sale ever was a small shipper out of Charlotte called Mitchum Potato Chips. They're not in business anymore, but I helped them, move loads to the Northeast, going to really bad food warehouses that had to have appointments and lumpers and everything else. But I loved moving those loads. So I would say my last sale, if I could make it that, right, kind of like, you know, if I got to put on my broker hat one last day, just like, they kind of like signed the 1 year contract for people to go in the Hall of Fame or whatever, just book one load and just walk out. But I'd make sure I booked it less than the last person who moved that lane, at least $2 less, right? So I would.
So really, just back to basics, back to that feeling of the beginning, right? The beginning of your
There's
career.
nothing more pure. I mean, look, as a freight broker, it's 3-dimensional. You're buying, you're selling, you're managing, right? So it's like a full on deal, right? Like you get the load, and then you got to find the equipment in the truck, and then you got to schedule it, and then it deliver. It's just clean, right? It's just done, and you move on. Like a clean bill of lading is a clean sale, right? You're just gone. Move on to the next one, right? So
Did
that
you
would
start
be a
out doing
clean.
cradle to grave?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And look, I still think and we talk about it all the time. Is cradle to grave or carrier sales model better? See, I was at CH Robinson. So I saw when we bought American Backhaulers, the power of laying a big carrier sales force on top of a big customer sales organization, right? And then you saw that with Coyote and Access, kind of similar. So we did it a little reverse because I wanted to buy a carrier sales organization, but like I would have had to kind of cut down on organic growth, and that it would have been like M&A versus greenfield. And so we've homegrown it, but I'm not fully convinced. I mean, we'll work it right. We'll have a true buy and sell side that'll be really, really good over time. But two large ones coming together is really powerful. And so I saw that at Robinson, and have really tried to recreate it at NTG, and then as I've transitioned out, the management team there, Perry, Drew, Ken, those guys have done a great job with it. And so I think they covered 99% of them customer sales, but cradle to grave. Yeah, that's the way I started the business, and a lot of nights, weekends, rebookings, everything else. So when it goes bad, everyone always says carrier sales adds another layer, but when it goes good, it's like beautiful. So, I think it's a debate that's an interesting one in the freight brokerage game.
It is. It's really. I started out cradle to grave too. That is kind of all I ever did was cradle to grave. So I don't even know what the other side even kind of looks like, but it is.
So I was cradle to grave. I mean, let's just back up to my days at Robinson. So I was cradle to grave. Started in Columbia, South Carolina office. It's where I learned how to sell. Some young leaders in there took me under their wing and really showed me how to fight objections, really showed me how to work on my script. I mean, I would drive to work working on it. We would pound out role playing all the time. So I took a lot of that and brought it all to NTG. But when we had access, I mean, I always equate it to the Access America Coyote thing, and I just listened to Ted talk about this too. But when American backhaulers came into CH Robinson, all my loads were covered like by 8:30 every day for the first week. And like I, as a control person and like to have control or whatever else, was like, who the hell do these people think they are booking my loads? And then like 2 weeks later, it just clicked. Like, okay, now I can go sell. Now I don't have to stare at the load board. Now I don't have to worry if that guy or girl is getting unloaded, right? And then I have to call my customer, rebook or everything else. I go do what I do best and sell. And so that aspect is extremely powerful. So it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation, but I like carrier sales because if I'm a carrier salesman or woman, now I have access to sell capacity into my company. And so as many truckers as I can get, or as big of truckers or I can get, like every time those move in my system, I make money. Like that's awesome. So I don't know. I like it all.
Yeah, it's almost like you're going full circle, right? Like your first sale and the last sale that we talked about are so similar, and that it's a cradle to grave. Hey, I'm gonna make this move. I'm either getting started or I'm headed off to drink my glass of milk on the beach in Italy. But let's think about the other end of that circle. What was the largest sale or the biggest sale that you ever made so far? Maybe there's more on the radar to come down the road in the future, but to date, like what's one of the bigger sales? Or and you don't have to say details, or don't want you to like cough up any sensitive information, but just want to hear about what that looked like.
Yeah. I mean, so again, I think sales is everything, right? And so when a bank decides or believes that they're going to give one of my businesses a really large line, right? Knowing and worrying about, is the business pretty enough? Or if I sell a business to a private equity group, they look at it really, really hard. They dissect it. They dissect me. They dissect all the other management team. So I would say probably the sell of NTG, right? Like to take a business and to have the companies that wanted to buy it all trying to buy it, having what I believe is the best investment banking group in Harris Williams representing it, right, and selling it. It's just that to me, and then the transaction being done is, it was like a load, right? Like we said, hey, we want to close in X amount of days, right? And if you don't close in X amount of days, we don't know if it's going to work out. And then we had to run around and meet their banks, right? They were running me through the town of San Francisco. So that to me is the most proud because it's got my name tied to it. It started in a 700 square foot office space. I had friends, family, people questioning, was it the right decision to go out on my own? I mean, I had a great trajectory at Robinson, right? And so to me, when that happened, it was on the Wall Street Journal, like that was like my biggest sale ever by far. And it set up my family and it set up my family office and I was dissected like I've never been dissected. And then the next time it happened, right, with OTR, when I sold that, I was prepared, right? I wasn't fully, I don't think anyone's still fully prepared to sell something they worked so hard on and put their life into. But that's my biggest one. And that one, your biggest one also comes with a lot of other, emotions, right? And so that to me was the best because it was touch and go at times, right? Paul Thompson, founder of Transportation Insight, he had other brokerages, right, on his short list, right? And so if we didn't come across the right way, it wasn't going to be us. And so my whole management team, gosh, and the men and women that worked on getting the, all the ins and outs. So that was by far the best sale, of the business. And then when it comes to the brands, and the in the freight game, my biggest sale, like as a young broker, was Enforcer Products, which was a division of Zep, which was a division of Acuity Brands. And so in that situation, like I got in with the enforcer side, which then led me into ZEP, which then led me into Acuity, right? And so it was like this whole snowball that made me learn, like, hey, account penetration, what you get in the beginning is only just a little tip of the iceberg. Like, let's study that account and see what else is there. So those are the two that I kind of like, So my first business sale, enforcer products, that was big, out of Emerson, Georgia. I remember pulling up to the docks, and there was like 80 doors or whatever it was, and then they were adding on more. They had a rail spur, like it, they had containers and all this, and I found them through a manufacturing guide. Literally, these old phone book manufacturing guides that they had, and I still order them sometimes. You can find them online. 2005 edition, 2007, 2018. And so that was just out of a straight cold call. Neil Turallo was the shipping manager there. And I went and saw him face to face. It was awesome.
So both of those are kind of starting small, right? You're starting in a 700 square foot office, striking out on your own, or then also with Enforcer, you're starting with a relatively small account that's leading into something big. Did you have those big targets when you first started? When you first opened up that office, were you thinking, I'm going to get to X and then I'm going to sell? And the same thing with Enforcer, where you're like, I'm going to start here and then I'm going to end in this future state where I'm going to have the parent of the parent's brand and have this big account? Or like, what was that journey like, getting from small to big in terms of your vision? At what point did you see a finish line and say, oh, I know where we're going now?
Probably, well, on NTG, I started it with the mindset and the mantra, top 5 freight broker. It meant a lot different in 2005 than it means now, right? And I've talked about that a lot, that when I left, TI and NTG together is now bigger than Robinson when I left. I think it might be double. I don't know exactly. But when I left Robinson, it was like $3 billion in revenue. And there was not anyone else near $1 billion. Right now, there's 18, I think, or so that are over it. So the game has changed a lot. But to answer your question, even on the enforcer aspect, I just like to get in there, right? Like, once I get in there, or once I'm at something, I'm going to play as hard as I can. I'm going to look at all the angles, and I'm going to try to figure it out and really kind of just be in there and be there. Now I got to get there. I got to get in it, right? Like, that's I had a coach once that said, hey, Nolan, once you're here, nobody plays harder, but getting you here is a little tough, right? So once I land something, or once I'm in it, like, okay, there's not going to be much, that I'm not going to figure out and know everything on it. Like, I'm the kind of guy that when I watch a movie, like the actor or the actress, if I like them, I'm going to know everything else they've been in by like 15 minutes into the movie. So I like to kind of piece the puzzles together and look. And then if there's always somebody, like on the Acuity thing, which Acuity had a ton more other brands that we ended up landing. But sometimes, like, that's the push off. That's the objection. Like, there's a big brother that won't let me sign you up. Or, hey, you're not approved by so and so, and we're owned by so and so. Okay, well, I'm gonna go try to get approved by them. And then if they like me, or like my business, or like my prices, I'm gonna win more out of it. So sometimes it was just an objection that I had to fight through, specifically on that account, for sure.
I have a question for you back to the sale of NTG, because it's something I've always wondered. So it's just a curiosity on my part. Once that deal closes and the funds are dispersed, does it just go into one bank account for you, right?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Like so it's acquired,
Like
the
my
deal
money,
closed,
or like no,
your money, yeah. So your share of the equity, right? Does it just hit one bank account?
yeah. Well, it goes to a
Okay.
lawyer's bank account,
Okay.
right? So it goes to a lawyer's bank account, and then that lawyer then sends it to your one bank account, right?
Okay.
And then you've got to disperse it from there, or figure out where
Yeah.
to put it and whatnot. But
Okay.
yeah, it was exciting. I mean, on the NTG side, I think we had like 244 people get paid, right? So it was sweet, right? And everybody helped build that, and it still is. And they'll, then we all rolled too, right? So it was like, hey, we want to be in this logistics asset that we feel like is the best still, and then we want to combine it with another business that we think is really, really good, if not the best managed trans business, which has a sticky, steady income versus a brokerage, which is up and down. And so it's been a really, really good marriage because of that. And so we all rolled, right? And so we're all still shareholders in the business. So like our portion of equity that was cash we got, and then our portion was not rolled into the mothership, so to say. And Paul's bought in 18 companies in that group. So it's highly diversified logistics stuff. We're in parcel, LTL, managed trans, freight payment and audit, a lot of different stuff. So it's pretty sweet.
Cool. So let's go back to the freight brokerage days, or maybe not even the freight brokerage, but the OTR days. Kind of what are some, a stressful sell, and that could roll into the stressful sell into a slump, right? And any stressful slumps you've had along the way where you get up and you kind of, question your confidence and being able to sell or be able to get out of a situation with sales.
So OTR, like you can oversell in factoring, right? Like you can outsell your cash, which is a problem, right? And so I never want to turn sales off, because once you turn sales off, it is very hard to reawaken a sales organization that gets away from, the activities that make sales happen. But if you don't have enough capital, you can't sell, right? So, every time we added like a new 10 or 15 power unit truck company, we had to make sure we had enough capital to support it. So several times, like we would be raising, we don't have this issue anymore at all, but in the beginning, right, like you have to raise cash to give out, to give to truckers, to buy receivables, to work on it. And so we would run around town and meet with people and raise money. And so when we did that, like that was a sell. Like that was a sit down. Like I'm asking you for money. Like I'm asking you for $150,000 to put into our business, and you're going to get every quarter in return, and a lot. And they would be like, "Why don't you put it in?" I'd be like, "I've already put it in. Look, this is how much I've put in." Everything else. So we had 44 individual investors in OTR at one time, with anywhere from $50,000 all the way up to $4 million. And so when we did the transaction with Summit, like it kind of cleared the majority of that out and had them as a large one. But I would have my best sales guy, Chris Ebel, who I think some of you guys have met at some of the conferences, whatever else. He'd come running in and be like, "We just signed up a 30 power unit guy." And Fritz would be like, "Oh my gosh, we got to go get 600 grand tomorrow, Kev." Right. And so having this large bank facility now has changed that. But that Fritz and I would eat at the same place twice, asking rich families in Atlanta, like, "Hey, we need some money," whatever else. And we would tell the waiter, like, "Hey, please don't say you just served us 15 minutes ago." Because we would be asking the same, we'd have the same presentation, but it'd be like, "Hey," and most families loved it, right? Because we gave them a great sense of return. They cheered for a company based in Atlanta. Right. And they're a lot of the reason why we are who we are today. But that is a stressful sale. Asking people for money to put into your business is the ultimate sale. Like, because they have to believe full darn. And this is like when the Bernie Madoff stuff was going on, American Greed shows coming out, right? And I'm not a quiet human, right? And so I'm living big. They're worried, am I, going to put it all in clubs or gamble it away? I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. But Fritz, like in those stressful sales situations, having steadiness around you is super important. So if there's anything out of this podcast that people get, if you're like an up and down volatile person, like I can be, having steady, strong support around you is the most important thing. And like I've always had that. So in those emotional sales or in those volatile sales, like I got a crew around me that's going to calm me down, A, but B, like everyone's going to look at them and like it's not just me, right? So that's, I don't know if that answers your question. I know that's not a
It
traditional type
does.
sale, but to me, asking for money is part of the sales aspect.
For sure.
It definitely is
And I'm
part of the
glad we
sales
don't do
aspect.
that anymore. Right. Because I'd see these
Yeah.
people now at weddings or whatever else. I'd talk to them and be like, hey, and they'd be like, okay, that's fine. How's OTR doing? And I'd be like, hey, nope, how's OTR doing? And then but I love talking about business too. So
That's great. So, is there a sale? And this is a sensitive question. Um, is there a sale where you might have made a mistake or something went sideways and you felt embarrassed or guilty or bad?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, being emotional and, ConAgra. I mean, we don't work with ConAgra at NTG anymore because I went up there. It's probably 2017. The spot market had just been hot. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. A lot of ConAgra's staff is old C.H. Robinsoners. A lot of them that was in that meeting with me, you know, thought that I took advantage of them in the spot market, and I didn't, and I lost it. I lost. We walked out of that place. We don't work with them anymore. I can promise you that. And I should have taken my medicine, right? And they don't know. They have no idea. There was no transparency on this Friday load, but by the way, that somebody else had given back to you that I decided to help you pick up, and I could have used those trucks for everybody. I mean, this is what I said, which I shouldn't have said.
Mhm.
But that situation, there was a customer in the room, and it wasn't me, right? And so I lost our biggest account, and my salesman, Will Strickland, who's still with me to this day, like, and Harold Barron, who's my partner at NTG, he was in the room. Like, I didn't handle myself well. I was challenged, and there's a lot of times I act like that, where like if I feel fear or if I feel like somebody doesn't like me, like I kind of coil and snap. And that was a bad one. I mean, that was a bad one. And those men and women that were at Robinson with me that work really hard and run a damn good ship up there, they didn't need to hear that crap that day. But you know, I showed my butt a little bit there for sure.
And
What's a
what
big
did you?
takeaway about how not to get yourself in that position again?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's some past there, right? Like I was at
Yeah.
Robinson, and now I have this big broker or whatever else. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how. I was young. I mean, I was a lot younger than I am now, and um, you know, I would say that I should have just sat there. I talk too much sometimes. Like everybody knows that about me. And in that situation, I probably should have just sat there and let Will talk and let Harold talk. But I don't know. I just felt like I needed to defend our position that we were not making money and we were getting those last minute loads because your original providers were not there for you. Right. And we work night and weekends and all this to cover your freight. And so that's just the difference between, there's been a, and it's awesome now. Thank the Lord we have all these men and women who came over from Coyote and UPS and Echo and other places right now that we've got this cross pollination in TI and NTG. But like that's been a hard thing for me being what I believe one of the best spot brokers to ever play in the game to then go play in the contract game, right? And at LTL, like I didn't understand you had to kiss the ring of the carriers, right? Like you're becoming a liquor distributor. You're getting the right to sell. That's why I think carrier sales was talking about earlier, but that was hard for me as well, was when we were running around trying to get direct rates, becoming an LTL broker, of the difference between how you interact with a truckload carrier and an LTL carrier. So I didn't handle some of those conversations great in the beginning either, but we've come around and learned how to handle that a little better.
Yeah, it sounds. If I'm hearing you there, it's the takeaway might have been, the soft skills of listening, even when you know you're in the right or you have a good position, and just learning how to better navigate some of those sensitivities. Um, so valuable as you progress in sales. I feel like, and having lived those types of things, I can only imagine what you would do differently, or the success that you're able to have after the fact because of those scenarios.
Oh, I've learned from it for sure. I've learned from it.
So, like on the flip side, what's the funniest sale you're ever part of? What was a sale where
Oh,
you tickled to death, cracking
there's
up,
a
and
ton. Oh, there's a ton. There's so many. But the best has got to be AJC International in Atlanta. So they are like a chicken importer, right? Like frozen chicken center seconds, and they buy and sell meats, and they do all. They've got a logistics branch now, um, but we used to move a ton of freight for them, refrigerated stuff down around the borders, in and out of the ports, and they were doing this health week, and somehow, some way, we caught wind of it. And me and Chris Ebel and Kyle Richards, I dressed up as Richard Simmons. Kyle dressed up as Jane Fonda, and Ebel was like my sidekick. And we went in and we did a full workout in like leotards and everything. And that was good. And then Santa Claus, I dressed up as Santa Claus. Everyone in the Southeast, that was my customer from '05 to 13, probably had me stop by as a Santa Claus and deliver a cookie cake, or but that dressing up as Richard Simmons, probably my funniest by far. I still have the costume. It's called the Simmons. I mean, it's fun. Big
I can
wig.
only imagine. I'm trying to picture this, Kevin, and it's an interesting
Oh, well, we
mental image.
ran in. I mean, look, we ran in. I mean, we ran into their office. We were in and out of there in like 20 minutes, but we had the whole place like up 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, and like it was just, I mean, we were, we had them doing all the moves, stretching, everything. We had a big boom box we were playing, and then we ran out of there.
Did you get more
That was
freight?
pretty funny.
Was it successful? Did you get some sales out of that?
Oh yeah, there was, and that's the other thing, right? Like when you go in, when you go and do a face to face, you get to meet everybody else in the office, and some of those men and women might be finding trucks or need your service as well. So yeah, we got a ton more people. I remember that. And then our intro emails or follow-up calls were so easy. It was like, hey, this is Richard Simmons, or hey, this is Jane Fonda.
Okay, let's go to this because I know about the Air Force One story. I think we swapped pictures of our Air Force
Yeah.
Ones. What's the most money you gave away, or maybe not gave away, but what's the highest dollar value of a sales promotion you did within your company?
Probably the
Or maybe what
cruises.
was the best one?
I mean, do you mean, well, we've done a Corvette that we've given away to whoever, booked the most truckloads. We've done cruises for sure where we've brought 150 people and their, significant other, spouse or date. We've done, cash giveaways. I'd say probably, it's usually like around 80 to 100 grand is the most that I'll do, like what I call like a throw cash on the fire to kind of light ignition and re-energize that sales energy, right? And so I mean, probably 100 at once.
And it works, right? I would think it works, or you wouldn't
I
do it.
mean, no, it works for sure, but it's like a drug, right? You can't do it all the time, right? Or like, it also like creates, it's good. It's good. It's something to kind of sprinkle in, but it can't be your whole MO, right? Your culture has to be good, your product has to be good, your services have to be good. It can't be all about, just getting the sales team to stand up and work for, quick cash or quick dollars. Sometimes it also, again, I know what I'm doing when I do it, but sometimes I know that like the accounts that you get fast like that, they're going to leave fast too, right? So a lot of times some of those sales quota busters type things or whatever else, you add a lot of accounts, but they might not be extremely long-term sticky value, but they're sure as hell fun. Like I mean, like we do dollar lottos at our business on Fridays where you write the name on the dollars and people drawing it out and they get the whole thing and you dump cash on them. Those days can be 7-8 grand people are walking out with. And I'll always juice those pots on Fridays. So, we love sales contests. Like I think there's a lot to them, but like, for MIG in January this month, doing whoever does the most face-to-face visits, the 4 men or women that do the most face-to-face visits will come to Florida, hang out with me, fish, we'll play golf, we'll do a good dinner, and we'll review their pipeline and everything else. Like that one is going to cost me maybe total with flights, hotel rooms, or whatever else, 12 grandish. But those 4 people that I spend that time with, like we'll be like, we'll gel. I'll help them close some accounts. I'll so that's invaluable to me.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I always think about like those contests as being like lighter fluid, and lighter fluid is great for getting your coals going, but you don't want to cook your steak on lighter fluid alone. It's going to taste a little funny. So you got to have those.
Absolutely.
It really is. Well, what's your most memorable sell? The roller coaster. I don't know if we've asked this. I will tell you this, and my first conversation with you was one of my most memorable conversations because I was in Wausau, Oklahoma. I was trying to run carrier lists, and I got this bright idea of writing a handwritten note to everyone in the top 100, the CEOs, right? And one person called me back, and it was you. I didn't make a sell that day, but it was a great conversation. I learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, my most memorable favorite, we just got the big award from Coca-Cola. And I know I brought them up earlier, but we're moving more freight with them than we ever had. And it's funny when the men and women go visit Coca-Cola at their headquarters now, like my picture comes up. Anything with NTG, it's like, hey, and I think it's like, get this guy away from the door, or like, hey, he's coming, or, tell him we don't have any freight. So, having drinking Coca-Cola my whole life. I mean, I think a lot of my success, I ran on Diet Coke for years. We were told no for so long. I mean, I still have clients and customers that I call them clients and customers. They're not yet, but they're going to be that I haven't closed yet. But that one, and winning that account and winning the amount of volume that we're winning from them, it just, that brand, right? It's just, every commercial, even this time around the holidays, the Santa drinking the Coca-Cola, around Atlanta, Coca-Cola executives, parents of kids, the families that I just admired, and they had like the Coca-Cola room of all the old, memorabilia, and so that to me is incredible. That's the one I'm the most proud of, and I think right now, and it's not easy, right? These big accounts, you don't make a lot of money on them, but you do get a lot of volume and you do build your business, but contract and enterprise business, you have to manage so hard. I mean, you have to make sure that every account, that you're paying attention to it daily. And I joke with the executives around Atlanta about Home Depot. Like, Home Depot's an account of ours, but they got as many people, I think, in logistics as NTG does. Like, they're as big as Shipper, Walmart, any of these big men and women, right? Like, they'll crush you. Like, they'll head to head, like a $50 million or $100 million top line freight broker. Home Depot is going to whip your butt. Like, you are not making a lot of money on that account. I don't care who it is. Niagara Waters, Niagara water is going to smoke you if you don't know what you're doing. So, just because I love the Coca-Cola account doesn't mean I'm going to make any money on it next month or the next month, right? But at some point we will, and we do. We do make more than we lose, but so sometimes the big brand isn't always the best. I also love the mom and pop, that I don't even call them mom and pop, but like the mid-size shipper that does 200 truckloads a week. Like that's a great account. So they're all good, but Coke means the most to me right now just because of how long I chased it.
That's awesome. Yeah, you can see a lot of meaning in that, especially when you put in so much work and to finally get it. It's the satisfaction there is more than just the brand. Um, Man, it's been great, Kevin. This has been an awesome conversation. Any last takeaways to leave with our listeners, or any last words of wisdom for all the salespeople that are out there listening?
All right. So a trick I have, I pull my arm hairs. I think I've said that before, but just it'll wake you up before you go into the meeting. Yank your arm. And if you don't have any arm hairs, maybe an eyebrow. And if you don't have any eyebrows, maybe pinch yourself. But be awake. Go do a face to face. Go see somebody. Go, and then just keep grinding. The slumps that I've been in, it's usually not because of my work. It's usually because of like stuff going on outside of my work. So, the best sales people I've seen are the men and women who can turn off that switch, turn on and off that switch and just get into the sales mode of like, I'm going to do sales for an hour right now. I'm going to do sales for an hour and a half right now. And that does not mean going in and finding leads for the next time you do sales. That means you go into that room and you go bang out calls. You go bang out emails. You write handwritten notes. You do something for an hour and a half every day, sales oriented, that's outbound, and you'll make tons of money. I mean, that's that. If it's a muscle that you work out your sales, work it out every day. You have to do something sales oriented, or your business will shrink.
Agreed. It's all about, you can't grow the top line fast enough.
I mean, the top line is the start of everything, right? And then as it trickles down, then you got to pay attention to everything else. And everything else is sales as well. The other thing, I've thought about it a little bit more since you've asked me the sales that I'm the most proud of. I think it's convincing men and women to come work with and for me, right? That is the ultimate sale. If someone's willing to give 50 hours a week or whatever they really do to some of them 100, some of them, around the clock, some of them less. But if they're really willing to give their time and effort to come represent what I started, like I sold them. And then that to me is the most special thing, most powerful, and the sales that I'm the most proud of. Because again, sales is everything in business. You got to sell someone to come work for you. You got to sell somebody to be your vendor. I mean, it's nonstop. So I love that you're focused on this. 2021 to 2023, our industry did not have enough sales focus. We didn't have to, right? And so you got to re-crank that sales engine. So let's see what you can do.
2024 is right around the corner.
It's going to be big. Big.
Richie, you want to wrap us up?
Thanks so much for joining us, Kevin. I appreciate your time and look forward to the next conversation.
Heck yeah. Thank you, guys.